that the 2020 election was stolen and said that if reelected, he would give, quote, police their power back, unquote, and give them immunity.
We're going to rebuild our cities and become a beacon of hope, safety, beauty, better than ever before. We're going to rebuild our cities. We're going to work with Democrat mayors who are running, in every instance, running them, Democrat mayors and many Democrat governors, and we're going to rebuild our cities. We're going to bring them back like they used to be, and we're going to make them safe places again. We're going to give our police their power back, and we're going to give them immunity from prosecution, so they're not prosecuted for doing their job. We'll take over the horribly run capital of our country, Washington, D.C., and clean up, renovate, and rebuild our capital city so that it's no longer a nightmare of murder and crime, but rather it will become the most beautiful capital anywhere in the world. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto the lives of our children. I will not give one penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or mask mandate. I will fully uphold our under siege Second Amendment. It is under siege like never before. We will protect innocent life, and we will restore free speech rapidly. And I will do something that's very important to me, maybe more important to me than any other person in the world. I will secure our elections, because you know what happened in 2012. Our goal will be one-day voting with paper ballots, proof of citizenship, and voter ID.
All right, so I'm going to go to my panel on this to deal with this fantasy land that Donald Trump lives in. I'm going to go to you first, Cameron. What are some of your thoughts on these comments of Trump and his plan for 2025?
I'm actually quite scared. I mean, quite frankly, I'm scared. To have a major party candidate literally with a complete disdain for the Constitution, literally telling us and putting it in plain sight his focus on an authoritarian rule. When you start talking about giving police immunity, that's one thing. But when these also a Time magazine article came out this week where he really outlined some of the horrifying things he plans to do once he's in office, kind of using the National Guard and the military as his own personal police force, the ability to say cut federal funding from schools. He's using all the dog whistles and all the things that he hoped get Genz's base up with transgender and critical race theory, and then all the things that he plans to do in terms of cutting aid and funding and help overseas. Like, not only would America really be in trouble, like the world will be in trouble. We have been a pillar of democracy, and through right or wrong, through this country's history, we've at least had presidents who at least on the front lines and things they would say have a respect for the laws of the land. But to literally be able to utilize and say, like, hey, I'm going to use police, National Guard, military to mass deport folks, to quench any uprising. And right. You mentioned earlier in the show, he might not even want to get out of office again.
He's not going to want to leave office. He didn't want to leave the first time. Okay, he didn't want to leave the first time. So, you know, Donald Trump talks about crime rising in America, but that's actually contrary to the actual data. NBCnews.com, as well as other major news outlets, have an article from March 19th, 2024. The U.S. crime rate is still dropping, FBI data shows. And we see that the national crime rate has been declining each year that President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have been in office. And very quickly, and I'm coming to you next, Teresa, it says the new fourth quarter numbers showed a 13% 6% decline in murder in 2023 from 2022, a 6% decline in reported violent crime, and a 4% decline in reported property crime. That's based on data from around 13,000 law enforcement agencies, policing about 82% of the U.S. population, that provided the FBI with data through November. Go ahead, Teresa, because for those who think that things cannot get worse, okay, yes, they will under Donald Trump, a second Trump administration.
Yeah, this is very troubling. I agree with Cameron when you say we are in a very scared state, especially with these fantasies. There's one thing when it talks to the base, right? And what is that base? The base, as I always find, a bit scarier than Donald Trump himself, is the things that we are working for in some way, shape, or form. So we don't know who really the base is, right? These are these hidden backdoor conversations with these individuals who feel this way. And so as we, as a public, try to push for equality across LGBTQIA, transgender rights, black and brown people rights, all the equality in the real estate, all of these things that make our country actually great. We have someone that is saying we're going to go back to a time where, we were in charge, and as we already know who that is. And so, and our guest earlier kind of already alluded to, it's bigger than, Joe Biden and his election. Yes, we need to vote for him, but here are the reasons why. The reasons why is because we are a united states, and that united feel and that united front to keep violence down, to actually look at the stats. That's why we're paying for it, right? Taxpayer dollars are paying for these reports. So if we don't believe the reports and we only believe in poll numbers, what are we saying that we're doing? We're doing mismanagement of leadership. So I think there is one, again, we only have a couple months here till November to really get across the finish line with the right elected leaders, and, with someone that is, quote, on trial, fighting for their own freedom, fighting, to financially get themselves out of debt. It's right. Not right. Them, it's their team around them. That's something that we all need to really be a participant in terms of coming to an election and making the right decision.
Absolutely. Well, we look at the executive order that President Joe Biden did May 25th, 2022 on policing, the second anniversary of the killing of George Floyd, which dealt with policing at the federal level, because based upon the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, states' rights, the majority of the control over policing is not at the federal level, but it's at the state level. But something that the Department of Justice can do is investigate the patterns and practices of police departments, which is something taking place now under the Biden-Harris administration, which basically stopped under the Trump administration. There was only one investigation into police departments under the Trump administration. And we know when Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, Donald Trump's first attorney general, became attorney general, one of the first things he did was to stop the investigations in police departments. And he said they were going to take basically a hands-off approach to policing because it was demoralizing police to have these investigations. He said we need to take a hands-off approach. And when you hear Donald Trump talking about immunity for police officers, this falls right in line with that. Go ahead, Cameron, with your I'm sorry. I went to Cameron already. I went to Teresa. Lastly, I got to tell people, read this fact sheet. I've talked about it before. Fact sheet: the Biden-Harris administration advances equity and opportunity for Black Americans and communities across the country. It's at whitehouse.gov. It's a 36-page document that shows you policy by policy how the policies of the Biden-Harris administration are helping the African-American community. Now, you compare that to what Trump and his cronies are saying, and you look at the 4 years of the Donald Trump administration and compare the two. You don't have to take my word for it. Proper documentation ends all conversation. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back. First. Okay, so if you go to our website, AfricaHistoryNetwork.com, scroll down the page, we have the information right at the top of the page. Black resistance movements, Christopher Columbus, the Haitian Revolution, and the Black Power Movement, 1492 to 1968. Next class, July 21st, 2024, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Class is on sale right now, $80, regularly $130. Click right here to register here for the full course. You can join us live for the class or watch classes on demand. Okay, join us live for the class or watch classes on demand. Click right here for a course bundle, so because you'll get both classes, which includes the first course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And we have class number 1 starting up Saturday, July 20th, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, of Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they did teach you in school. So that class is on sale, $80 also. All right. And this content is PG